What if one mistake destroyed everything? Imagine this. You're a top NHRA pro stock driver, standing in the pits with your sleek red and yellow Pennzoil Pontiac Firebird, a fan favorite that's been winning races left and right, turning heads with every pass down the quarter mile. Life is good. You've beaten the big teams, earned respect as an independent warrior, and that iconic Pontiac feels unstoppable. But one ordinary Friday afternoon in 1997, everything literally explodes. A deafening blast echoes through the pits, shrapnel scatters everywhere, and a banned nitrous oxide bottle rolls out from under your car, venting freezing gas for all to see. In that single moment, your reputation, your points, your future, gone. Or is it really over? This is the real story behind Jerry Eckman's explosive blow-up, NHRA's biggest cheating scandal that still has fans fiercely debating decades later. Was he a calculated cheater who finally got caught, or just the unlucky fall guy in a class where similar rumors swirled around everyone? We'll expose the hidden details you've never heard, the secret inside that famous Pennzoil Pontiac, the brutal punishment, and the twists nobody saw coming. But here's the burning question. Could this kind of disaster happen to anyone chasing victory at all costs? Stay tuned, because what we uncover next about how a clean-cut racer ended up in this nightmare might shock you even more. But how did a respected, hard-working driver like Jerry Eckman end up with a hidden bottle in his iconic Pontiac? The answer starts way back in his early days. And trust me, it's not what you think. But how did a respected, hard-working driver like Jerry Eckman end up with a hidden bottle in his iconic Pontiac? The answer starts way back in his early days. And trust me, it's not what you think. Picture a young Jerry Eckman, born in 1942 in California, growing up with grease under his nails and a passion for speed that pulled him into drag racing during the wild 1960s. He didn't come from money or big factory backing. He started at the grassroots level, competing in local stock and super stock classes, wrenching on his own cars late into the night just to make the next event. These were the days of raw, door-to-door battles on small tracks, where every pass taught him the fine art of tuning and driving. Jerry quickly built a name for himself as a smart, determined racer who could squeeze every bit of performance out of whatever he had, even if it wasn't the fastest car on paper. By the 1980s, everything changed when he teamed up with Bill Orndorff, a fellow Californian tuner with the same relentless drive. This partnership wasn't just business, it was a brotherhood forged in the shop, where the two independents combined their skills to take on the big-budget teams. Without major sponsor dollars at first, they hustled in NHRA events and match races, slowly climbing the ladder with basic Pontiacs and Chevys that punched above their weight. Orndorff handled much of the engine building and setup wizardry, while Eckman brought the wheelman talent, shifting gears with precision that turned good cars into winners. These early years weren't glamorous. No private jets or factory haulers, just endless hours on the road, scraping together parts and contingencies to keep competing. But that's exactly what made them relatable to fans. True underdogs in a sport increasingly dominated by corporate power. Little did anyone know, the pressures of staying competitive against those giants were already planting seeds that would grow into desperate decisions years later. Viewer, think about it. How far would you go to keep up when the gap keeps widening? As the 1980s turned to the 1990s, a game-changing sponsorship arrived, transforming their operation and introducing the car that would become legendary, the Pennzoil Pontiac Firebird. But with big success came bigger scrutiny, and whispers that something darker might be brewing behind the scenes. Hold on tight, because the rise of that famous Pontiac reveals clues to the explosion you won't believe. The Pennzoil Pontiac era begins. As the 1980s turned to the 1990s, a game-changing sponsorship arrived, transforming their operation and introducing the car that would become legendary, the Pennzoil Pontiac Firebird. But with big success came bigger scrutiny, and whispers that something darker might be brewing behind the scenes. Hold on tight, because the rise of that famous Pontiac reveals clues to the explosion you won't believe. It all started in 1990 when Pennzoil came on board, flooding the team with the resources they'd been missing for years. Suddenly, Eckman and Orndorff could build a proper pro stock contender, a sleek, aerodynamic Pontiac Firebird body wrapped in bold red and yellow livery that turned heads the moment it rolled off the trailer. Under the hood sat a massive 500 cubic inch naturally aspirated V8, hand-built in their shop with the latest heads, cams, and tuning tricks to squeeze every horsepower out of gasoline alone, no power adders allowed in the class. This wasn't just any car, it was an engineering statement from two independents proving they could hang with the factory-backed giants like Warren Johnson and Bob Glidden. The debut couldn't have been more dramatic. At the 1990 U.S. Nationals in Indianapolis, the biggest race of the year, Eckman drove that fresh Pennzoil Pontiac to his first NHRA national event victory, shocking the establishment and putting the team firmly on the map. Fans loved it. Here was proof that hard work and smarts could beat big budgets. The car hooked hard off the line, ran consistent low 7-second elapsed times, and trapped speeds over 190 miles per hour, making it a threat every weekend. But viewer, pause and think, what kind of pressure does sudden spotlight bring when you're still an underdog fighting for every contingency dollar? With Pennzoil's backing, the Pontiac evolved quickly. Year after year, Eckman and Orndorff refined the setup, better suspension geometry for killer 60-foot times, optimized aerodynamics to slice through the air, and engine combos that kept them qualifying near the top. The car became synonymous with consistency, rarely smoking the tires, always in the hunt. By 1992, Eckman finished third in the point standings, a huge achievement for an independent. But as the wins piled up, so did the envy and the rumors. In a class where hundredths of a second separated winners from also-rans, whispers started circulating. How are these guys staying so competitive without factory millions? Were they finding gray areas in the rules, or something more? The Pennzoil Pontiac wasn't just a race car. It was a symbol of defiance, a rolling billboard for what passion could achieve. Yet those same qualities made it a target. Viewer, if you were in their shoes watching bigger teams pull ahead with endless R&D, how tempting would it be to push the envelope just a little further? The peak years were coming, with 8 national wins total and battles that thrilled crowds. But the intense 1990s pro stock wars were about to turn ruthless, setting the stage for decisions that would lead straight to that explosive Friday in 1997. You won't want to miss what's next, the pressures that cracked even the strongest teams. Peak success with the Pontiac. The peak years were coming, with 8 national wins total and battles that thrilled crowds. But the intense 1990s pro stock wars were about to turn ruthless, setting the stage for decisions that would lead straight to that explosive Friday in 1997. You won't want to miss what's next, the pressures that cracked even the strongest teams. With the Pennzoil Pontiac Firebird hitting its stride in the early 1990s, Jerry Eckman and Bill Orndorff entered what many fans still call their golden era, a stretch where the red and yellow beast became one of the most feared cars in pro stock. That first win at the 1990 U.S. Nationals was no fluke. It opened the floodgates. Over the next few years, Eckman racked up 7 more national event victories, including the prestigious 1992 Gator Nationals and the 1993 Mile High Nationals in Denver. The Pontiac consistently qualified in the top half of the field, cutting low 7-second elapsed times and trapping speeds pushing 195 miles per hour, numbers that put it right in the mix with the sport's elite. What made the car so special wasn't raw horsepower alone, it was the total package. Orndorff's engine programs produced reliable, drivetrain-friendly power that let Eckman launch aggressively without shaking the tires. The chassis setup was dialed, perfect weight transfer, killer 60-foot times in the 1.05 to 1.07 range that gave hole shots over even the factory-backed entries. Fans packed the grandstands just to watch that Pontiac stage, burnout clouds billowing, and then rocket away with the front end sky high. In 1990 and again in 1992, Eckman finished a remarkable third in the NHRA Winston point standings, proving an independent could challenge for a championship against the likes of Warren Johnson, Bob Glidden, and the Dodge factory teams. Viewer, imagine the rush, rolling into every national event knowing your Pontiac could win on any given weekend, hearing the crowd cheer louder because you're the guy beating the big money operations. Contingency sponsors loved it. Stickers from Pennzoil, Valvoline, Goodyear, and more covered the body, bringing in the cash that kept the team alive. Eckman became a fan favorite, approachable, professional, always signing autographs with a smile. The Pontiac wasn't just a race car. It was a symbol of hope for every small-team racer dreaming of glory. But here's where the story gets darker. As the wins piled up, so did the target on their back. Rivals watched every move. How could these independents stay this competitive year after year while bigger teams poured millions into R&D? Whispers started in the pits. They're finding something the rest of us aren't. The 1990s pro stock class was evolving into an arms race where hundredths of a second decided rounds, and losing meant falling behind financially. For teams like Eckman Orndorff, one bad season could end everything. No factory safety net to fall back on. Viewer, put yourself in Jerry's fire suit. You've tasted victory, felt the thrill of beating the odds, but you see the gap widening again as new technology trickles down to only the richest teams. How far would you go to protect what you've built? The answer lies in the ruthless environment of mid-1990s pro stock. where rumors of hidden power adders like nitrous weren't just gossip, they were an open secret nobody could prove, until one team finally paid the ultimate price. The pressures were building to a breaking point, and by 1997, something had to give. Coming up, the toxic 1990s scene that pushed good men to the edge, and the warning signs everyone missed before that Pontiac literally exploded. Trust me, you're not ready for how deep this rabbit hole goes. 1990s pro stock pressures. The pressures were building to a breaking point, and by 1997, something had to give. Coming up, the toxic 1990s scene that pushed good men to the edge, and the warning signs everyone missed before that Pontiac literally exploded. Trust me, you're not ready for how deep this rabbit hole goes. By the mid-1990s, pro stock had transformed into one of the most brutally competitive classes in all of drag racing, a high-stakes arms race where innovation was king, but the cost of falling behind could end a team's season, or even their entire program. The Pennzoil Pontiac Firebird was still winning rounds and turning heads, but Eckman and Orndorff were feeling the squeeze like never before. Bigger operations dominated the landscape. Warren Johnson's GM-backed powerhouse with endless R&D resources, Bob Glidden's Ford dynasty that seemed unbeatable for years, and the Mopar factory effort pouring money into drivers like Darrell Alderman and Scott Jeffrian. These teams had full-time engineers, wind tunnels, and budgets that dwarfed what independents like Eckman could scrape together from contingencies and Pennzoil support. In this environment, every advantage mattered. Cars were running deep into the 6-second zone at over 200 miles per hour, and races were decided by thousandths of a second. Tech inspections grew more invasive, NHRA officials tearing down engines after rounds, checking for illegal mods. But the real talk in the pits was about nitrous oxide, a cheap, effective power adder that could give a massive boost if hidden cleverly, say in a dry sump tank or plumbed discreetly. It was strictly banned in the naturally aspirated class, but rumors flew everywhere. The Dodge boys faced suspensions in 1992 after traces were found. Bob Glidden dealt with endless accusations, later echoed by his own son. Even top teams whispered about others using it to stay ahead. For smaller outfits like Eckman-Orndorff, the temptation was real. One off year meant losing sponsors, crew members jumping ship, the whole operation crumbling. Viewer, imagine pouring your life into that Pontiac, knowing a little edge could keep you relevant, but getting caught would destroy everything. Were the rumors just sour grapes from losers, or was nitrous more widespread than anyone admitted? The pits were thick with tension, side-eye glances, guarded trailers, tech officials lurking. By 1997, Eckman's team was still competitive but struggling to match the latest leaps from the big players. The Pennzoil Pontiac needed something to close the gap, or risk fading away. Warning signs were there, more protests at events, NHRA cracking down harder. But no one expected what happened next. June 20, 1997, arrives, a routine Friday at National Trail Raceway that turns into chaos. The Pontiac is in the pits, and disaster strikes in the most public way possible. You're not going to believe the details of that fateful moment. Stay with me, because the explosion itself reveals secrets that shocked the entire sport. Section 6. The Fateful Day in the Pits. June 20, 1997, arrives, a routine Friday at National Trail Raceway that turns into chaos. The Pontiac is in the pits, and disaster strikes in the most public way possible. You're not going to believe the details of that fateful moment. Stay with me, because the explosion itself reveals secrets that shocked the entire sport. The NHRA Pontiac Excitement Nationals are underway at National Trail Raceway in Columbus, Ohio, one of the most popular stops on the tour. Teams have rolled in early, setting up their trailers and unloading cars for the weekend. Jerry Eckman's operation is no different. The red and yellow Pennzoil Pontiac Firebird arrives in pristine condition, ready to defend its reputation after a solid but not dominant start to the 1997 season. The car hasn't turned a wheel yet, no qualifying sessions have begun. It's simply up on stands in the pit area while Bill Orndorff and the crew perform standard pre-event maintenance, focusing on the dry sump oil system to ensure everything is perfect for the hot, humid Ohio summer. Jerry himself isn't even right there when it happens. He stepped away briefly, handling typical race day logistics. The pits are busy but calm, rival teams nearby, fans walking through, tech officials making rounds. Around 2:30 p.m., with no warning at all, a violent explosion erupts from the Eckman trailer area. The blast is loud enough to stop everyone in their tracks. Shrapnel from the dry sump tank scatters across the asphalt, denting nearby trailers and sending people ducking for cover. Then comes the most damning sight. A large nitrous oxide bottle, still freezing cold from pressurized gas, shoots out from under the Pontiac and rolls into view, venting thick white clouds as it spins to a stop. Nitrous oxide, completely prohibited in pro stock, where engines must run on gasoline alone. There's no mistaking it. Crews from neighboring teams, including Dodge factory drivers parked close by, witness the entire scene. Word spreads like wildfire through the pits. Eckman's car just blew up, and there's a nitrous bottle. Shock turns to disbelief, then to pointed questions. How did a band power adder end up hidden inside one of the most respected independent Pontiacs in the class? Viewer, picture the chaos. Safety crews rushing in, NHRA officials immediately cordoning off the area, the bottle still hissing as it empties. No one is seriously hurt, but the damage is done, both physical and reputational. The car hasn't even qualified yet, but the weekend is already over for Eckman-Orndorff. Questions explode faster than the tank itself. Was this a deliberate, sophisticated cheating system? An accident? Or something the driver himself didn't even know about? NHRA guards the trailer overnight, and the investigation begins immediately. But the real bombshell evidence is inside that Pennzoil Pontiac, and what tech officials find next turns a shocking accident into the biggest cheating scandal the class has ever seen. Don't go anywhere. The hidden plumbing, the traces, and the verdict that ended everything are coming up, and it's even more controversial than you imagine. Explosion details and evidence. NHRA guards the trailer overnight, and the investigation begins immediately. But the real bombshell evidence is inside that Pennzoil Pontiac, and what tech officials find next turns a shocking accident into the biggest cheating scandal the class has ever seen. Don't go anywhere. The hidden plumbing, the traces, and the verdict that ended everything are coming up, and it's even more controversial than you imagine. With the nitrous bottle lying in plain sight, venting its last clouds of gas, NHRA tech officials, led by senior staff, move fast to secure the entire Eckman pit area. No one touches the Pontiac until a full inspection can begin. Overnight, guards watch the trailer to prevent tampering. By Saturday morning, with qualifying already disrupted, the teardown starts under intense scrutiny from rival teams and media. What they discover inside the red and yellow Firebird is damning. The bottle wasn't just loose cargo, it was deliberately concealed inside the dry sump oil tank reservoir, a common hiding spot rumored in the pits for years. Plumbing lines ran from the bottle through the firewall, suspiciously routed toward the cockpit where a driver or crew could theoretically activate it. Worse, chemical tests on the fuel system reveal clear traces of nitrous residue in the lines and injectors, proof the system wasn't just storage, it had been used or at least primed for use. The setup was sophisticated enough to evade casual glances but not a motivated deep inspection. Jerry Eckman, back at the scene by now, maintains shock and distance. In later interviews he insists he had stepped away and only noticed red flags from Orndorff's behavior earlier, implying he wasn't the mastermind. Orndorff stays quieter. Both men cooperate, but the evidence paints a picture of intentional cheating in a class where even a whiff of power adders means severe consequences. Viewer, imagine the sinking feeling, your beautiful Pontiac, the car that carried you to 8 wins, now torn apart piece by piece as proof of rule breaking. Was this a desperate bid to stay competitive, or did someone on the crew go rogue? The questions swirl, but NHRA isn't waiting for answers. They're preparing a ruling that will shake pro stock to its core. The verdict drops swiftly, and it's brutal beyond imagination. Stay locked in. The punishment, the appeals, and the claims of scapegoating are next, and they expose fractures in the entire sport that still haven't healed. Section 8. Enter ruling and ban. The verdict drops swiftly, and it's brutal beyond imagination. Stay locked in. The punishment, the appeals, and the claims of scapegoating are next, and they expose fractures in the entire sport that still haven't healed. Saturday morning, June 21, 1997, NHRA officials call Jerry Eckman and Bill Orndorff into a private meeting. The evidence is overwhelming. Nitrous bottle hidden in the dry sump, plumbing to the cockpit, residue in the fuel lines. No doubt, this is a deliberate, illegal power adder system. The ruling comes down like a hammer. $25,000 fine each for Eckman and Orndorff. All 1997 points immediately stripped. Indefinite suspension from NHRA competition, minimum 2 years before review. The Pennzoil Pontiac is impounded for further inspection. The team's weekend is over before qualifying even finishes. Viewer, imagine standing there, your car, your pride, your livelihood, gone in 24 hours. Eckman later said he felt blindsided. He insisted he had noticed strange behavior from Orndorff that morning, stepped away on purpose, and never activated anything himself. He claimed he was the fall guy, punished while bigger teams with similar rumors walked free. Orndorff stayed mostly silent. The fine was paid, but the ban crushed them. No racing, no sponsorship money, no income. The iconic red and yellow Pontiac sat silent in a shop, a trophy that became a tombstone. Appeals went nowhere. NHRA stood firm. Cheating is cheating, no excuses. But many in the pits quietly agreed with Jerry. Why him? Why not the others? The real question burns. Was this justice, or did NHRA need a public example to scare the class straight? You're about to see how deep the resentment went, and how one man fought 15 years to get his name back. The comeback twist is next, and it will hit you hard. Don't leave now. The verdict drops like a bomb, but the shockwaves don't stop with Eckman. The scandal tears open wounds that had been festering in pro stock for years. Hold on, because what this blow-up really exposed about the entire class is even darker than you think. Jerry Eckman's indefinite ban sent an earthquake through the NHRA pits. For the first time, a major cheating bust had happened in full public view. Not a quiet teardown after a race, but a literal explosion that no one could ignore. Suddenly, every team's trailer felt like it was under a microscope. Tech inspections ramped up dramatically, more random teardowns, deeper fuel sampling, officials poking into every corner of dry sump systems across the board. The message from NHRA was crystal clear. Nitrous, or any hidden power adder, would not be tolerated no matter who you were. But here's where the real controversy ignited. Many longtime observers believed Eckman was singled out as a scapegoat. Rumors about nitrous had swirled for years around bigger names. Bob Glidden faced constant accusations. His own son Rusty later admitted to using it in the family operation. The Dodge factory teams had already been hit with suspensions in 1992, and whispers followed Warren Johnson's dominant GM cars too. Yet those cases stayed quieter, resolved behind closed doors or with lighter penalties. Why did an independent like Eckman take the full, career-ending fall when the explosion forced NHRA's hand? Viewer, think about the bitterness. A hard-working 8-time winner, no prior major violations, suddenly branded a cheater while others kept racing. The scandal highlighted the class divide. Big-budget teams could afford lawyers, PR spins, and political pull. Independents had none. It cleaned up pro stock long-term. Nitrous rumors faded sharply after 1997, but at what cost to fairness? The Pontiac sat silent for 15 long years, but Jerry never gave up hope. Coming up, the emotional fight for reinstatement and a comeback nobody expected. This twist will hit you right in the feels. Don't miss it. The Pontiac sat silent for 15 years, but Jerry Eckman never stopped fighting. In 2012, after paying the fine, NHRA reinstated him. He raced emotionally at Indy and Pomona, one last roar from the legend. Jerry passed on December 24, 2022, at age 80 from Alzheimer's, remembered as an 8-time winner and true gentleman. His blow-up forced NHRA to clean house, ending the nitrous era. But the debate rages, fair justice or scapegoat? Viewer, what do you think, cheater or victim? Comment below. Which scandal next? Subscribe for more exposed truths.